Hey guys, welcome back to Hauer Power's YouTube channel. I'm here again with Ryan Hauer of Hauer Power. And today we're going to be talking about something that, is a pressing topic with maybe some customers who are in Sherwood Park and Edmonton. So what is the difference between the two different cities in when you're getting a panel upgrade in Sherwood Park versus a panel upgrade in Edmonton? Now, this could be, just switching out your panel, or if you're doing an electrical service upgrade. Which one did you want to tackle first?
Yeah, so when it comes to doing electrical service upgrades from existing panels, there are some differences between doing them in Sherwood Park versus doing them in Edmonton. And it's not so much the Canadian Electrical Code that comes into differences there, because the CEC is a national across Canada code book, but it's more to do with the addendums that the local authorities having jurisdiction have put out. So with Sherwood Park, for example, Fortis holds all the infrastructure for Sherwood Park and area, as well as Edmonton, in contrast, has EPCOR for all the infrastructure. And the EPCOR has ECG, the EPCOR Connection Guide, and the EPCOR Connection Guide has a lot of very strict requirements for service upgrades in Edmonton. And for good reason, because EPCOR and Fortis both bring raw unfused power coming from a transformer to then feed your home and your first point of disconnection. And that's what the service upgrade is all about, is making that all code compliant up to that first point of disconnection. Everything else after that is just a branch circuit, your lights, your plugs, your kitchen, your smokies. But coming up to that first point of disconnection, that's where it's grounding and it's not bonding. That's where it's your neutral and not your identified. And that's where you have line 1 and line 2 coming off of that split phase transformer that EPCOR or Fortis owns. And so in Sherwood Park, when we deal with Fortis, it's different. And when we deal with EPCOR in Edmonton, it's different. And not to say different in a good or bad way. They both have their pros and cons. But when we work with Fortis in Sherwood Park, for example, it's going to be a different scenario if we're in Strathcona County and we're doing, say, a new build, and say they have piping requirements to come to that panel from the transformer. Whereas if we're doing a service upgrade, the power linesman with Fortis is going to have different requirements for power disconnection. But all in all, they do have some similarities too. When we do a disconnect, reconnect with EPCOR and we book it online with EPCOR, it's typically 2 weeks out. Maybe it's a month out if it's busy season, but that's all done through email with EPCOR. If we're booking a disconnect with Fortis, disconnect, reconnect, because of all of our contacts within Fortis, what we can do with them is do a phone call. And depending on the urgency, we might be able to get it same day or next day. The Fortis power linesman, I don't know if it's a matter of more people because of a broader area, but typically they can help us out heck of a lot sooner. And depending on reputation, the company might be able to help you out a heck of a lot sooner and have those contacts to make a smoother experience. Whereas with EPCOR with Edmonton, it's a lot more regimented, it's a lot more strict, and it's a lot more by the book, which is, again, good. It's a major city, and they want to make sure that the major city doesn't have fires. With all that said, too, EPCOR's departments, it'll matter who you reach out to, because if it's a metering issue or if it's a power trouble issue, that's going to matter for who they send out.
Okay, now when it comes to, let's talk about the customer who is looking for a service upgrade or a panel upgrade in Sherwood Park from an electrical contractor like Hauer Power. What does the process look like in Sherwood Park? Like, what are the permitting fees, the permit requirements, timelines, that kind of stuff? What are we talking about for that?
Yeah, great question. This is ever changing, so check the date on this video before you quote me on this. But at the end of the day, Fortis used to have no cost for upgrading your service ampacity in Sherwood Park, or for doing a service upgrade period.
So that's going from 60 amp to 100 amp and 100 amp to 200 amp. Is that right?
And 200 amp to 400 amp.
Okay.
Yeah. At the end of the day, they used to not carry cost with a lot of factors depending thereon. But if it was EPCOR, they always carry a cost, almost always, for upgrading that transformer and for upgrading power to that property lot line. So they're both similar in the sense that they'll bring power to the property lot line. And at that property line, homeowner is responsible for hiring Hauer Power to bring power from property line to house and making all that code compliant. Then in both scenarios, an inspector needs to see it, sign off on it before power is restored to the property. With that said, when doing a service upgrade in Sherwood Park, it might be more costly just because you're going to pay the electrical contractor the same way you would in the city, but you're likely also going to pay Fortis for a flat fee. And with that said, in the future, they might make it a monthly fee. They might correspondingly, maybe EPCOR will charge more for that too. In Edmonton, there's no fee going from a 100 amp federal panel fire hazard to go to a 100 amp Siemens or Leviton panel. EPCOR doesn't charge a fee for that. They make that back, I'm assuming, on all their monthly bills, but at the end of the day, there's no fee coming from EPCOR for that. For Fortis, at this time, to my knowledge, they do have a fee for that. So it depends on your area, depends on your jurisdiction, and it depends on really what process they have, because it's an ever-changing process, as it has to be. Our population has exploded with newcomers from all over, and with that, their process will continue to change. Sometimes on a monthly basis, we've seen it on a weekly basis. Okay. The past 5 years, their changes and their updates have changed. It's a vast difference from 5 years ago.
All right. I guess another question that a lot of people always have is, how much does it cost to do let's start off with a service upgrade from 60 to 100 in Sherwood Park versus Edmonton? Yeah,
great question. If we're doing a 60 amp to 100 amp service upgrade in Sherwood Park, that typically means it's an overhead service, as most underground services are 100 amp base. It's very rare to find a 60 amp underground service. Rare, not impossible. But if we're going from a 60 amp overhead to a 100 amp overhead in Sherwood Park, and there's no garage in the way, and there's no trees trimming to be done, and there's no grounding electrode upgrade required, and the panel's in a compliant location. There's a lot of checks here.
A lot of checks there. Yeah, a lot of things.
Otherwise, we're giving a guy a ballpark of, $4,000 to $12,000, depending if we have to do directional drilling, depending if we have to do a grounding electrical electrode upgrade, depending if we have to move the panel, depending if we have to amalgamate panels, depending on if he's got 80 circuits in the house versus 15 circuits. There's a lot of factors that come into play. We like to say a ballpark average of about $5,000 for an overhead service upgrade, but it really depends. That's why you can't give an honest number, because it's not honest. You got to come on site. Any electrician that's quoting you over the phone for a service upgrade, without photos, we got a checklist of 20 questions for these. And that's why we come on site to have a look, because we have to see the distance. We have to see the grounding. Is it number 6 bare copper? Is it number 8 from the 60s? We got to upgrade that. Code compliance matters when it comes to the first point of disconnection coming into your home. And with that, the distance of the panel matters, the height of the meter, the height of the panel, the type of panel, the type of grounding versus bonding. So many factors come into these. And that's why it's so important to have someone so experienced doing this in your house. It's changing your own plug, some would call DIY, but changing your panel, it's not a panel change. It's a meter change, a panel change, a grounding change, and permits and EPCOR coordination, or permits and Fortis coordination, depending if you're in Sherwood Park or depending if you're in Edmonton. So there's a lot of attention to detail that if you miss a few points, it'll cost you thousands more. So even if it's expensive at the start, it's going to be expensive either way, but it's a heck of a lot more expensive if you don't perform those checks and balances with a pro.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now, when it comes to you guys have been in business for how long?
2018. So for us, it's been about 8 years.
Okay, so 8 years, Hauer Power has been in business. And roughly how many service upgrades and panel changeovers have you done in that time frame?
In the summer months, we'll probably do about 4 or 5 a week. And in the winter months, maybe 2 to 3 a week. So, if you times those by 52 weeks in the year, we're probably in the thousands at this point. Yeah,
a lot.
a lot, yeah. So to think of, you could do it as a DIY. We're still learning because they're still changing.
Right.
EPCOR upgraded it from 1.25 inch rigid steel galvanized mast to 2 inch rigid steel galvanized mast. which actually it was always code to have 2 inch. You could not have 1.25 inch. However, we had an addendum here in Alberta that allowed us to have 1.25 inch because we have natural gas, and other provinces have a lot more electrical. They have a lot more 200 amp services. So a 2 inch rigid steel mast is the code. But we had an addendum that said, oh, we can use 1.25 inch. That addendum was then removed, and all of a sudden everyone was shocked that we had to use 2 inch rigid steel. And so inspectors were failing service upgrades right, left, and center because they were using the same pipe we've been using for the last decade and so. And now we had to use what was code. But we had that addendum that allowed us to go smaller because we have natural gas to supplement things like your furnace and your hot water tank, whereas in other provinces, those are electric. You go out east, every house in New Brunswick has a 200 amp service. That's the 60 amp.
Yeah.
That's your baseline.
Because you have all electric baseboard heat or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's got heat pumps, electric hot water tanks, hot water on demand, and baseboard heating, electric furnaces. So they don't have natural gas running to every house everywhere. At least in my experience when I was there, which is really neat. Same thing. You go to Montreal, you go to Ontario, you go to BC. A lot of places don't have readily available natural gas pipe to each and every home. Whereas here in Alberta, we do. So we were able to have 100 amp services and 1.25 inch steel masts. But they removed that addendum and had to go to 1.25 inch. Then some more things changed. This was all in a period of 6 months, mind you. So all in all, getting back to the main point, doing this task as a DIY when the code changes so much, the addendums change, as well as the EPCOR connection guide and the Fortis connection guide. When those changes happen so frequently, month to month, there's no chance that a DIY person is going to be able to stay on top of that. And in a lot of areas, you can't pull a homeowner's permit to do a service upgrade. And in my opinion, you shouldn't be able to too. You should have a master electrician to pull that permit because it's so intrinsic to burning down your house. That first point of disconnection, that matters. If someone's working with raw, unfused power and it's not disconnected first, that won't let you go. There's no breaker protecting that. You might be lucky if that transformer is fused and the fuse catches it, but by then, brain damage or worse. That's a lot of power.
Yeah.
And that's just human loss too. The property loss on that is catastrophic. So it's very strict in Edmonton. It's still very strict in Sherwood Park, and it should be because that's what's going to ultimately be that first point of disconnect, separating yourself from utility power. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's huge. And it protects not only you and your home, but it protects the other homes that are connected to that same transformer.
That's a solid point. Yeah, we have had it where we've come out to site and the homeowner says, oh, I've lost power. And we go, okay. And we go out and there's a few other neighbors standing outside. And we go, okay, talk to them. They've lost power too. And then we see, a Dodge Caravan with a ladder on the roof, and that's in front of a house and no one's outside of that house. So we go knock on that house and sure enough, someone just hired Kijiji Electrician to change out their service upgrade, their panel. And sure enough, he didn't pull a permit and he didn't coordinate with Fortis to have that electrical meter removed. And so he tried doing it live, and thankfully he's alive. But if that line 1 arcs out to your base and it does cook the transformer that's feeding 5, 6, 7, 8 houses, then you're now on the hook for any losses that way. And if that electrical contractor or Kijiji Electrician doesn't have insurance, which probably doesn't at that point, if he's not following that procedure, then you're on the hook as a homeowner. By the same way, if that guy doesn't have WCB coverage and you end up with an electrician on your floor in your basement because you went with a cheaper guy, you're on the hook for that. Actions have consequences.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to cost a lot more than a few grand more that it would have cost to hire a pro.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to justify that payment. But yeah, it's an expensive job. We always offer financing for our clients that way so that if you can't afford it, but you know it needs to happen, then maybe you pay $50 a month for the next 5 years. That can be arranged. There's options out there, but ultimately, yeah, it's either a fire hazard if it's a real old panel, or it's going to be a fire hazard if you cheap out and get someone to do it the wrong way. You want a contractor that you call after because, hey, now this circuit's tripping. Okay, well, that breaker's working now. That's good. We can still help you and run a new circuit. But you want a contractor that's going to answer the phone after and be able to warranty that work, be able to perform any sort of remediation now that that major change has occurred, because other stuff will change too. You might find lights have stopped flickering. You might find you plug in two things and now it does trip the breaker because it always should have tripped the breaker.
Right.
And it's just working now. That's always a fun conversation. Like, oh, turns out we actually eliminated that fire hazard. It's going to be annoying though now until we run a new circuit because that ultimately should have been tripping. Yeah. It was overloading the circuit all these years. The insulation's probably crispy, so we'll have a look at that too. Yeah. That's always a scary thought.
Thanks so much for being with us today and telling us all about the differences between Edmonton and Sherwood Park when you're getting a panel upgrade or service upgrade. And if you guys are looking for a solid electrician who has like many years of experience and thousands of panel upgrades and thousands of service upgrades in Sherwood Park and Edmonton, Hauer Power is the one you're looking for. So thank you so much. See you guys on the next video.